There was once a young woman so beautiful that even the morning sun seemed to pause when she stepped outside. Her skin glowed like polished bronze, and her eyes sparkled with mischief and confidence. Her name was Nia, and in her village, men whispered her name like a secret blessing, while women sighed with admiration and envy. Every season, suitors came, warriors, hunters, and even sons of chiefs, bringing gifts of cattle, beads, and fine fabrics, but Nia turned them all away. "Oh, none of them are worthy," she would say with a tilt of her chin. "Their eyes are dull, their words are simple, and their hearts are small." Her mother, an old woman named Amara, would sigh deeply. "A beauty fades, my daughter. Choose a man who will honor you before time teaches you humility." But Nia only laughed. "If I am as beautiful as everyone says, then I deserve someone beyond ordinary men, someone perfect." Years passed, and one by one her friends were married, their homes filled with laughter and children. Yet Nia remained alone, still waiting for the man she thought would match her beauty and spirit. And then, one late afternoon, when the sky blazed orange and gold, he arrived. He came from the forest path, a tall, handsome stranger dressed in fine white robes that shimmered in the sun. His face was smooth, his smile radiant, and his voice carried a calm, soothing rhythm that made even the birds quiet. "Oh, good evening, beautiful one," he greeted her, bowing slightly. "I have heard of your grace even in lands far beyond the river. I have travelled many days just to meet you." Nia's heart skipped. Never had she seen a man so perfect. His teeth gleamed like ivory, his eyes deep and dark, his scent like fresh rain. "Who are you?" she asked, pretending indifference though curiosity burned inside her. "I am Oba, son of a great chief," he replied smoothly. "My father rules a land where the moon shines brighter and the rivers sing sweeter than anywhere else. But even in such beauty, I have seen nothing as radiant as you." His words were honey, and Nia drank them in. That evening, she told her mother about the stranger, but Amara's face turned grave. "My child," she said softly, "we do not know this man or his people. Let him come to me so I may speak with him." But when Nia searched for Oba the next day, he had vanished into the forest. Days later, he returned, again dressed in flawless white, carrying gifts of golden ornaments and fine woven cloth. "Come with me, Nia," he said, his voice gentle yet commanding. "Be my wife, and I will show you a land where your beauty will be cherished forever. There you will live as a queen." Amara begged her daughter not to go. "A man who comes from nowhere and speaks of distant lands is not to be trusted," she warned. "Ask him of his family, his village, his people." But love, or what she thought was love, had blinded Nia. "A mother," she said, "you speak like the jealous women of the market. He is noble and kind, and he loves me. I will go with him." That night, under a crescent moon, Nia packed her belongings. Her mother's tears followed her as she disappeared down the forest path beside her mysterious suitor. At first, the journey felt like a dream. The path wound through tall trees that shimmered as though dusted with silver. Strange fireflies danced in clusters, lighting the way. Oba walked ahead, his steps silent, his white robes unwrinkled despite the journey. But as the hours passed, the air grew colder. The trees changed, their leaves darker, their branches twisted. The birds no longer sang. Nia felt a shiver crawl down her spine. "Oba," she whispered, "how much farther is your village?" He smiled without turning around. "Not far now, my love. Just a little longer." When dawn broke, the world seemed dimmer. The once green forest looked grey, and even the light felt thin. Ahead, in the distance, Nia saw figures, people standing motionless at the edge of a mist-covered clearing. As they approached, her excitement mixed with unease. The figures were silent, their eyes blank, their clothes faded and torn as if they had been worn for many years. Yet Oba's voice was cheerful. "My people are waiting to welcome their new queen." Nia smiled uncertainly, but her heart thumped with unease. Something about their stillness chilled her. They didn't blink. They didn't breathe. Oba took her hand and led her forward. His fingers were cold. She glanced at him, and for a moment, his perfect face flickered, like a reflection in disturbed water. She blinked, and he looked normal again. But something inside her whispered, "Run." Still, she ignored it. She had wanted a perfect man, and now he was here, handsome, mysterious, and hers. Whatever doubts she had, she buried them beneath her pride. She told herself her mother was wrong. She told herself everything would make sense soon. But as they entered the mist and the air grew heavy with silence, She couldn't shake the feeling that she had crossed into a place where the living did not belong, and somewhere deep in the forest, the spirits began to whisper her name. The deeper they walked into the mist, the quieter the world became. Even the sound of Nia's footsteps seemed to vanish, as though the earth itself no longer wished to make a sound. A faint hum filled the air, soft at first like wind through hollow wood. Then it grew stronger, a strange, mournful vibration that made her skin crawl. Oba, she whispered, clutching his arm. Oh, what is that sound? He smiled, though his lips barely moved. It is my people singing, my love. They welcome you home. But their singing didn't sound like any song she knew. It was low, hollow, and full of sorrow, like hundreds of voices crying from beneath the ground. Still, she followed him, convincing herself it was just her imagination. Soon they entered the village. The huts were unlike any she had seen before, grey, half sunken into the earth, as if the soil was trying to swallow them whole. Smoke curled weakly from a few fires, yet the air remained cold. The villagers, if they could be called that, stood silently in clusters, watching her with lifeless eyes. Their skin was pale, their movements slow and uncertain, like people lost between sleep and waking. A shiver ran down Nia's spine. Ooh, she said softly. Your people, they do not smile. He replied calmly. They have not seen someone as beautiful as you in many years. He led her to a large hut at the edge of the village. Inside, everything shimmered faintly as though covered in thin dust. Mats were laid out neatly, but they were cold to the touch. A pot of food sat untouched in the corner, and when she peered inside, she realized with horror that the stew was not warm. It looked fresh, yet there was no fire beneath it. She turned to Oba. How can this food be fresh if no one cooks it? He smiled again, but there was something different now. His expression didn't quite reach his eyes. You ask too many questions, my queen. Rest. You must be tired from your journey. He guided her to sit, his touch firm and cold. When he brushed her cheek, she flinched. It felt like the touch of stone. That night, Nia lay awake, staring at the thatched roof above her. The humming outside never stopped. It rose and fell like the breath of something enormous and unseen. When she finally drifted into sleep, she dreamed of her mother's face, tearful and pleading. Oh, come home, Nia, her mother whispered in the dream. He is not what he seems. She awoke with a start, her heart pounding. The air in the hut was freezing, her breath visible. She turned to where Oba had been lying beside her, but the mat was empty. Only his robe remained folded neatly. She called softly. No answer. She stepped outside, the cold mist wrapping around her like fingers. The villagers were still there, motionless, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. One of them, an old woman with hollow cheeks and thin grey hair, slowly turned her head toward Nia. Her voice was like dry leaves when she spoke. You do not belong here. Nia froze. What do you mean? The woman raised a trembling hand and pointed to the forest. Go back while you can. Before the sun rises again. He brings you here because he envies the living. A chill spread through Nia's body. You're lying, she whispered, backing away. Oba loves me. The old woman's eyes darkened. He is not Oba. He is what remains of a man named Oba who died many seasons ago. He walks between worlds, seeking warmth he can no longer feel. Nia shook her head violently. No, that can't be true. And look at your hands, the woman said softly. Nia glanced down and gasped. Her fingers were pale, almost translucent in the mist. Her pulse, once strong and steady, now felt faint. She could barely feel her own heartbeat. Panic seized her. She ran back to the hut, calling for Oba. When she pushed open the door, he was standing there, waiting, but he was no longer perfect. His skin had lost its colour, his eyes were sunken, and his smile had stretched into something terrible. My love, he said, his voice now deep and hollow. Oh, why do you run from me? Nia's voice trembled. What are you? I am your husband, he said simply. You wished for a man more perfect than any other, one who would love you beyond death itself. Now you have him. He stepped closer, and she saw the truth. His robes were tattered burial cloths, his hands cold and grey. The faint scent of earth and decay clung to him. Terror gripped her, but her pride still clung to denial. You tricked me, she screamed. He smiled sadly. You tricked yourself. You wished for perfection, and perfection is found only among the dead. The living are flawed, my love. They age, they change, but I will never leave you. He reached for her, and the shadows seemed to close around them. Nia stumbled backward, her body trembling as the air grew heavier. Every instinct screamed at her to run. She bolted through the door, the mist thickening behind her as if trying to hold her back. She could hear Oba's voice echoing through the trees, calling her name, not angry, but pleading. "Ania, come back. You belong to me now." She ran until her legs ached, until the mist began to thin and the first light of dawn touched the treetops. Her lungs burned, her heart pounding weakly, but she didn't stop. Behind her, the forest began to fade into silence. And as the sun rose, she stumbled into a familiar clearing, the edge of her village. But when she looked back, there was no forest path anymore. Only still air and the faint whisper of her name carried on the wind. When Nia stumbled into her village at sunrise, her feet were bare, her white dress torn, and her once bright eyes dim with terror. The people who saw her gasped. She looked like someone who had wandered through death itself. Her mother, Amara, rushed to her, dropping the basket she held. "My child," she cried, gathering her trembling daughter into her arms. "Ania, what happened? Where have you been?" Nia could not speak. Her lips quivered, but no words came. Her body was cold, her skin as pale as ash. Amara led her home, wrapped her in blankets, and sat beside her through the day, whispering prayers to drive away evil spirits. When Nia finally found her voice, it was faint, as though part of her still lingered in that other world. "A mother," she whispered. "You were right." He was not a man. He was something that should not walk among the living. Amara's heart ached at the fear in her daughter's voice. "Tell me, my child," she urged softly. And so Nia told her everything, the handsome stranger, the cold village, the hollow-eyed people, and the way Oba's face had changed when she learned the truth. She spoke of the old woman who had warned her. In a chilling moment, she realized she was becoming pale, almost spirit-like herself. When she finished, silence filled the hut. Only the faint crackle of the fire broke it. Amara closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Me daughter," she said at last, "you have walked among the dead and returned. Few souls ever do." That night, the village elders gathered in Amara's hut. They listened to Nia's tale with grave faces. One of them, an old man named Jabari, who knew the ways of the spirits, nodded slowly. "There are spirits," he said, "who envy the living. Some died longing for beauty, love, or warmth they could not have in life. Sometimes, when a person's pride blinds them, those spirits find a way to enter their world, through desire, through vanity. They offer what the heart wants most, but their gift always comes with a price." Nia bowed her head in shame. "I was foolish," she murmured. "I thought myself too good for the men here. I wanted perfection, and I nearly paid for it with my soul." For many weeks, Nia could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Oba's voice calling softly from the mist, whispering her name with longing and sorrow. Sometimes in her dreams, she saw him standing in the forest, half in shadow, his eyes pleading, but she never answered. She knew that if she turned toward that voice again, she would never return. Slowly, her colour came back, her warmth returned, and her spirit began to heal. Yet she was not the same woman she once was. The pride that had once filled her heart was gone, replaced by a quiet humility. She no longer looked in mirrors, nor did she boast about her beauty. Instead, she helped her mother with the village children, taught them stories, and spoke gently to anyone who came seeking advice. One evening, months later, a young man from a nearby village came to trade goods. He was not tall or rich, nor did he wear fine clothes, but his eyes were kind and his laughter warm. He greeted Nia with respect, not admiration, and spoke with honesty, not flattery. When he left, Amara smiled knowingly. "He seems a good man," she said. "Would you speak with him again?" Nia thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but this time I will look not at what shines, but at what stays." From that day on, Nia lived differently. She had learned that beauty could invite envy, and pride could open doors better left closed. When the young girls of the village gathered around her, giggling about love and handsome faces, she would tell them her story. Her voice would grow quiet as she said, "Beware of love that comes too perfect, for sometimes perfection wears the face of death." The children would gasp, clutching each other's hands, and Nia would smile gently. "A true love," she would continue, "it belongs to those who live, with all their flaws and fears. It is not found in shining robes or soft promises, but in kindness, truth, and shared struggle." And when the night fell and the fires burned low, Nia would sometimes walk alone to the edge of the forest. She would look into the mist and whisper softly, "And may your spirit rest, Oba." No voice ever answered, only the rustle of the wind through the trees. But she felt, somehow, that he heard her, and that, finally, both of them were free. The tale of the girl who married a ghost spread far beyond her village, passed down through generations as a warning and a lesson. Beware of vanity, for it blinds the heart. True beauty is not in perfection, but in the soul that remains alive, humble and kind.